Hello and welcome to Steven University. This week we're talking about Horror Club, an episode which I will not describe. Oh no, because we are, for a temporary time at least until Chris gets bored of doing it, passing straight over to Chris. What was it about?
Let's not have, this be down to when I get bored, because then if we switch back next episode, people will be like, oh, fuck, sorry, we weren't Chris. Like, it's really, you edit and stuff. This is all I have to do. So it'd be really shitty for me to be like, you know what, those 30 seconds at the beginning, nah.
The thing is, I do the one for other podcasts, Fringe Observers, and I pre-write that. I go to a lot of effort to write like a succinct description. It's a 40-minute episode of a TV show. You want to be able to sum it up in a couple of minutes to remind people of the key points if they've not rewatched it just before it. But with Steven Universe, I've never felt the need to pre-write them, so it's always been so much easier just to ramble about it. But the problem with that is then you end up discussing it before you've even gotten to the
But I think I quite like the fact that it tests me. Like, I think it's an interesting spin to have the person who's never seen it before and the person who isn't as into it but is getting more into it to sum it up. I think that's quite a cool idea. So anyway, it
came from a listener. At some point I will look back at the comments and I will find out who that person was and credit them on podcast, maybe next week. But in the meantime, Chris, what was it about?
So Treehouse of Steven Universe, the Halloween special, known as Horror Club.
Did air during Halloween in many territories. Not America, ironically, but...
Really?
I don't believe so.
Because it absolutely felt, and it's not a criticism, but it absolutely felt like a Halloween
did February.
That's insanity, but okay.
It's true.
Fine.
I'll tell you which countries later it aired in Halloween for. And in fact, apparently in those countries, they really fucked up the ordering. I think it was Latin America, the Philippines, and some of Europe got it for Halloween 2015. But they had to really screw with the order to make it fit that. So
Did they get it later or earlier than they should have?
I'm going to assume later. I'm going to assume later. Like,
okay. Because I imagine when you see him like bubble the gem and send it up, if they did it earlier, you'd be like, "What? When could he do that?" But anyway,
that's a good point. Good point.
So Stephen and Sadie are going to Horror Club. Lars, in either a bid to seem vaguely cool or because Sadie's excited about going, and
that's how I saw
Stephen and Sadie hug, which is how I saw it as well, decides to go with them. It is being run by Ronaldo, who seemingly is a lot younger than he appears and is the same age as Lars, but okay. So they start watching a movie, Stephen gets scared, and they decide that the house is haunted when they start hearing things. In investigating that, some spooky stuff goes down, including Sadie getting captured, and then they go down and Lars is written on the wall, and we see this kind of monster. We then discover it's a gem really late on, to the point where I thought maybe they were doing an episode not about gems. And Stephen captures the gem, and for some reason, the gem shows a flashback, which some other gems better do in the future, or that was purely for the plot. And that in that flashback, we see that Ronaldo and Lars used to be friends, and then Lars's bid to be popular and cool led to their ultimate downfall. That is the plot.
Yeah, good.
In terms of what I thought, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good episode. Like I say, I enjoyed it all the way to the end. But part of me was just that little bit more intrigued and invested when it looked like there was going to be, because they really bring the gem stuff out late, and I'm like, maybe there's another explanation for this shit. And I'm one of the few Power Rangers fans, keep bringing up Power Rangers on this podcast, to like, for example, the episode I'm Dreaming of a White Ranger, which doesn't really involve Rita or giant monsters forming. I don't think they even morph in it. I think that's cool to do that sometimes. And I thought they were going to do that here, but they didn't. They made it about a gem, which is fine. I still really liked that. I thought the Lars Ronaldo character stuff was cool. I go back to my original point. Well, I've got like a few thoughts. One, the Bear movie, its like subtitle, as far as I can see, wasn't on the box. That was a bit annoying and weird, because I was like, well, that's like it being like, oh, this is Die Hard with a Vengeance, but the box just says Die Hard. 2, but it had a log line. I found that weird.
So wait, you're getting your nitpick is this is I tell you what, this is a nitpick within a nitpick. So your complaint is that the fictional production company behind this rare cult film that they've got that's been remade since, your nitpick is that they didn't put the film's subtitle on the box.
I know, as far as I could see, they didn't. No.
Right.
Yeah. So it's big. It's big. Hey, that's how much I'm paying attention these days.
I hate 10
Universe.
points.
You should be proud.
Yeah, I'm proud. Very proud.
I liked the last character stuff. Huh?
What?
What'd you say?
Nothing.
Seriously, didn't you think Ronaldo was like an aged man, like last time he was in it? Is that just me? Like,
I got the impression he was only a little older than Lars, because he still is, like, him and his brother still, work at the fry shop. Like, he's a bit of a...
Well, that's true.
I don't know, the way they've sort of equated him with his brother Petey. So I don't know. I always thought of him being a little bit younger, but I still assumed he was probably a little older than Lars. But it's within the realm of possibility they could have both been children roughly at the same time for me. But I totally get why you would think otherwise, though. He does. Yeah. He's just in his design. He's drawn more like an adult than the other characters, for sure.
But, cool. So yeah, I thought we got some nice Steven moments. We got, so again, like, not again, but we've had a few episodes recently that have sort of strayed from the norm in terms of characters. We didn't really have the gems after having quite a few gem-centric episodes, so that was cool. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Like I said, again, the Halloween special thing is not a criticism. I think that's kind of cool, like, and that's kind of fun. And you don't, it's weird. It kind of almost makes me feel warmly nostalgic. And I'm aware I'm watching a children's show, and that's why. But you don't, with the exception of sitcoms, and I would argue that, like, I don't really recall. Modern Family does like a Halloween thing, but I don't recall New Girl and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Oh no, Brooklyn Nine-Nine has a traditional Halloween thing as well. Yeah, but they're very like,
a lot of shows do.
But they're always about the costume party. You know what I mean? Like, when you were a kid, like Keenan and Kel's Halloween episode, or Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World has a Scream spoof. Boy Meets World spoofed a movie that the people watching Boy Meets World were not old enough to watch, and had the actress from the movie in it. Obviously, The Simpsons goes mental every time. 2.5 Men did a really weird one as well, didn't they? No, not 2.5 Men. Sorry.
Two guys, a girl, and a pizza place.
2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place.
Yeah, they did one where the character actually like started murdering everyone, and it was just like, oh, I guess it's not canon because it was just never referenced again.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and so the Boy Meets World one was cool, like that. Anyway, I could talk about that for ages, but this made me feel like you don't get Halloween specials like that when you watch adult TV, even in like the sitcoms. So to get that was pretty cool. And I know, obviously, like, people are going, well, it's because you're watching a kids show, but still, like, I'm just giving you my honest reaction, and my honest reaction was, oh, cool, Halloween, nice. Yeah. What did you think?
I'm not a big fan. It's okay. I get why anyone would like this episode. I don't. This isn't you're crazy if you like it. I see the merit in the episode, but I just cannot get over the idea that Ronaldo would just sacrifice Lars. Like, that would be murder, would it? I mean, as far as he's aware, throwing Lars into that thing is the end. And yet he's totally willing to throw Lars into that thing. I struggle with that. That is weird. In a kid's show.
But, yes. Yeah, I'm not denying that. But I assume the defence is, yeah, but Lars hurt him and blah, 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 blah. I know that's no defence for murder.
Any character to be willing to murder in this show feels really out of place. Really out of place. But
he's got such weird... You're talking about a character with weird and abstract and kooky views on the world.
I know.
Anyway.
You know what it is?
So if you're going to do it, he's probably the
only one you can get away with it with. Yeah, no, it's fair. Look, I think what it comes down to is I'm not a huge fan of Ronaldo as a character. So any episode centering around him is usually like,
I found him less annoying this time than his first appearance.
Yes, definitely less annoying.
Major episode.
But there is a lot to like. First of all, the best gag in the episode by far is Steven being like, I can watch this, and you see him sitting, looking like he's watching it, and being completely brave, and the camera pans out, and he's literally watching the couch, and he's like, he's behind the couch.
they do it really well because you hear the sound of the video, like, and it's like a really violent bit, and you just assume he's watching it, and yeah, it's nicely done.
I've never seen that gag done that way before, and I thought that was a really good payoff, unexpected but very funny. So yeah, and I also really liked any little teases at the Lars Sadie stuff. Like I definitely viewed him suddenly deciding to go because he's like, Steven's like, you come in a horror club? He's like, horror club, lame. And then Sadie's like, Steven, are you ready for horror club? And he's like, maybe I'll come along. So I totally saw that as a, Lars is into Sadie or
a
vice
lady
versa,
thing.
Whatever. Yeah.
Lady. The fans call it that.
I will have to Google it, but maybe I've never heard it referred to as that, but that would make sense. So that's good. I like the hint at the end as well when like Ronaldo's like, oh, I was trying to save you, and Sadie's like, great, and Lars is like, I was trying to save you harder. I ran down here faster. Like that again, a little hint that like that little weird little tinge of jealousy. Like I like that. That's nice. And I must admit, I kind of felt that the dramatic payoff in this one felt a little rushed. This is a show that's managed to take a fun little story and turn it dramatic on its head in a really powerful, clear and concise way in a very short space of time. And while I really like the idea behind why Lars and Ronaldo fell out, I thought they kind of rushed it a little bit here. They didn't quite get the balance as well as they've done in previous episodes. Because
they also didn't really give it a resolution either.
No.
Because they didn't even talk about it.
Nope.
Ronaldo made a reference to Sadie. That was basically it.
Yeah. I mean, that to me was the part of the problem. That's a very Adventure Time way to approach it. I'm sure the Adventure Time writers just write scripts that are longer than the episodes every week, and they just cut off the endings. Either that or it's the so this is basically Adventure Time video where the writers are in the writers' room just going, how do we write endings? Because that's a very Adventure Time thing to do. One of the reasons I feel this is the superior show is it's very good at wrapping stuff up when it needs to. Or giving us some semblance of conclusion, even if it doesn't necessarily go into the details of it. And there was no resolution at all to the conflict between Lars and Ronaldo, really, other than them acknowledging that it happened and then moving on. But not in a way that actually, in a very sort of unhealthy way, in like a, we're not even going to discuss it properly. We're just going to decide that it's fine, which isn't really a healthy human way to deal with any issue you have with another person. So that's weird and unlike the show, because the show's usually good at making the characters make healthy choices and actually like air their grievances and actually work them out. The show's been very good at that historically, and I can say right now, as we call it a spoiler, whatever, the show continues to do that, going forward. So it feels odd in this example. So the core ideas behind this episode are all really solid, and there's a bunch of really good gags and a couple of really nice moments, but just something about it doesn't all gel when it's put together. And it's one part me not liking Ronaldo that much as a character, one part a rushed ending without any real conclusion.
But not just the ending, but sorry to interrupt you, but the gem giving the flashback doesn't help that, because getting that story out is like a really powerful, interesting thing. But the way the gem randomly does it and they watch it is weird, because you spend a bit of that going, what?
Because what's weird is, though, you're not even questioning the gem controlling the house, because we've seen gems control inanimate objects before. There was a gem shard in an early episode that controlled Steven's clothes, if you remember that, in Frybo.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of the realms of possibility for a gem or a gem shard to be able to control an animate object. So everything that happens in the house, as weird as it is, you can explain that way. But you're right, the flashback thing is odd. Especially, I suppose, we've seen Pearl, emit light from her gem before. Do you remember this might be a weird pull, but I think in Cheeseburger Backpack, there's a scene where they're one side of a room, they need to be at the other, and there's like these little creatures in the middle, and Pearl projects from her gem the images of them and what she thinks their plan should be to get through that room. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
So she projects like a version of her and a version of Steven and a version of Garnet and Amethyst, I think, and then like shows where they should go to get through the obstacle of the room. And then the joke is Steven goes in his backpack and pulls out like a sandwich or something and throws it into the corner, and they all go off to eat that, and they just walk through. So her entire plan is just worthless in the end anyway. But like, so they have shown that gems have the ability to project images that way physically. The question really is, fine, it saw that, and you could even go fine. Maybe it has the power to do the projection. The question is, why? Why that moment? Is it trying to make them understand? Is it that sentient? It's very, very vague and weird.
And is it not? Would it not have been better if like Lars comes out and he's like, "You sacrificed me. What are you doing?" And he's like, "You hurt me." He's like, "You hurt me." He's like, "You hurt me first." And then they have to tell the story, and we just see it in a flashback. I feel like the reason they didn't show it in a flashback is because whenever anyone's told a story for like the last 4 episodes, it's been in this weird 8-bit style animation. And so they maybe didn't want to tell it in that style, so that's why they didn't do it. And it's like, we'll just stop using that style.
Yeah. It was odd. It was a bit odd. But, you know, I understand the reason it was there. Quick way to get that out. Because, again, the episode feels a little rushed. Maybe they crammed a little too much plot into the episode, and that's the part of the problem. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't find the same balance they usually do. My point being is that this is far from a perfect episode. It's certainly not one of my favourites. But, again, I acknowledge it is full of good stuff. There's just something not bringing all those. It's like you've made a stew, Chris, and just a food analogy because maybe I'm hungrier than I thought. And you've put all these great ingredients in there that make a really good stew, but just something about it isn't bringing it together when the actual finished product, despite all the individual ingredients being good, is a bit grim.
I don't think there's too much I don't think there's too much stuff because you only got to look at last time's episode or the last episode we watched where they crammed in so much about.
Yeah, but they found a really good way to balance all that, didn't they? That's the difference.
It's execution. Like it just wasn't execute. There were a few nitpicky things about the execution that were just too much. So it's the equivalent, to continue the stew analogy, because why not? It's the equivalent of cooking a stew, but like cooking it the wrong way. So the thing you're meant to fry, you boil, so you've got all the right ingredients, and there's not too many. It's a perfect balance. You've done all the measuring correctly. But suddenly you're over frying and you're over boiling and you fuck it up with the cooking.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, that makes sense. There's a couple of cool continuity things though, I will say. If you look at Ronaldo's wall, he's got the picture he took of Steven's cat fingers up, which I thought was a nice. No, I've just realised what I've done. It wasn't even an intended one, but fine. You want to yell? You want to say something? Or do you want me to move on?
I'm fed up of yelling.
Okay, great. That was legitimately... There have been so many times I've shoehorned it in to make you mad, and that time legitimately was where I didn't think it through before I said it. That is there, though. Sadie does still have her scar from Invisible Gem Monster, I know, from the Invisible Gem Monster from Adventure Island, which obviously... we talked about maybe disappearing at some point because I couldn't quite remember how often it stuck around for, but it's certainly still there now. I noticed it. Also, when they head to the lighthouse, the fence that there was put around it in an indirect kiss, after Amethyst falls off it, that fence is still there to prevent, I guess, anyone else cracking their gem. The jacket that Lars wears is the jacket he wore in Lars and the Cool Kids. These are just cool little continuity things. And let me see, was there any others? Originally this episode was going to be called Beach City Horror Club, but about 6 days before it aired, they shortened it to Horror Club. You're still mad about cat fingers, aren't you?
I'm still mad, yeah.
Okay. I tell you one thing I haven't mentioned, which I thought was really good, though. I do say that I do love that the origin story between Lars and Ronaldo is such a perfect analogy of what Lars and Ronaldo's characters are. It's really well designed. Because they are in a weird way polar opposites of each other. Because you've got Lars, who's a character who's all he cares about is how people perceive him. The rest of it's irrelevant. Like it doesn't matter if that photo proves that ghosts exist or whatever. He doesn't want that photo out there because it affects people's perception of him, because that's all he cares about. And then you've got Ronaldo, who's the exact opposite of that, who is been not outcast, but within the town he's not necessarily thought of as being the coolest or the best or whatever, because he doesn't care, because he's willing to embarrass himself for the sake of the truth and his whole like X-Files vibe that he's got going on. So that's a really perfect backstory between them.
The character stuff in that, and actually also the the explanation for why Lars's name is on the wall, like all of that element of it. Again, the right ingredients, but just executed a bit in a bit of a forced manner. But yes, for those reasons, that stuff is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and so a point that's made here on the Wikipedia page as well, not the Wikipedia page, sorry, the Steven-universe.wikia, they talk about how Lars carved his name. The gem then must have waited to take revenge on him for hurting it, and Lars has probably not been back since that moment because they fell out. So that's why it suddenly reacted that night.
Because he was back.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
That's cool.
I'm into that.
Although,
logic.
Ronaldo's been sticking shit on the wall and presumably hitting a nail or blue tack into the wall, but alright.
Oh yeah. The house never took revenge on him.
Yeah.
True.
Probably blue tack.
Probably blue tack. So yeah, have you got anything else to add? That's just some like little bits that were
No. I think I've said no. I think it's a pretty concise summary. It's good representation of how I feel. It's weird. This may be the first one where I was more positive than you potentially.
Yeah, I think we've hit yet another threshold. I mean, I've been meaning to ask Chris because we've not asked in a few episodes now. Where are you at with the show on the whole? Because I feel like
I'm enjoying it. Yeah. Mirror Gem, Ocean Gem was a turning point, and that episodes like last week's, which dealt with Amethyst, has done nothing, and the stuff that's led to the theories, such as my bitchin' calling of Stephen and Connie, and my theory about Garnet being a fusion. Ever since all of that stuff, I'm watching. And like I've said, I'd probably keep watching even if we weren't doing this.
Have you given any thought to? Well, that's awesome, by the way. That's huge news. Have you given any thought to what you think? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's say your theory is correct, because I'm trying to follow the logic that you must be thinking. If that's what you're assuming is where it's going, that Garnet turns out to be a fusion.
A fusion, yeah.
Have you given any thought then to what you think the two gems that have become her are like?
No, I could have a think about that. Thinking of
because that's what I would be. That's what I would be doing if that's where I'd landed. I'd be going, what must those characters?
I guess that's where I am with the show. Then I don't care enough to do that. No, I'm joking. So you've got that cool. Maybe one of them, like we talked before about that slight contradiction between the side of Garnet that's like your middle name is Cutie Pie, and that side that's like just hardcore no. And so maybe one of them is quite cold, and one of them is quite sweet, and that seems a good. There's two types of personality there. So yeah, there you go.
I'm surprised that's not something that you'd thought of though, because and this isn't me like sort of being like, Chris, you dummy, why didn't you think of that? I'm just legitimately surprised that is it just because you were just sort of like, if I'm right, the show will show me, and it won't matter what I think that those characters are, or did it just legitimately?
No, I think it's to do with as we've discussed in many aspects, both in how we watch TV and how we view TV, and even in our writing style when writing. Anything we really write, you think in terms of character and I think in terms of plot and beats and moments, and Garnet being a fusion is a moment, and what that means for her character and her two sides is a character thing. So I just hadn't thought about that side of that.
That's really. That's you've just laid out our writing styles, like, because for those who don't know, we aspire to be screenwriters outside of our podcasting. Very little success to speak of since
we did a web series called Writing Space. It's on our YouTube. You can watch that if you like.
Yeah, we wrote that.
It's old, but
and then we co-wrote another web series called Liquid Lunch. That's out there somewhere, on the internet.
I've got a short film called I Did. That's more recent. That's out there on Vimeo.
Yeah. Chris wrote that. It's on Vimeo. Go watch it. It's good. It's very good.
Thank you very much.
It's a strong script.
Thank you, man. But yeah, anyway, but that is our writing style, like going. But I think it's also how we view TV. Like, even like there's an episode we've just recorded an episode of Fringe Observers, and I was referencing a character thing about they've changed something about a character, and given two characters more of a backstory. But even that character element, I was only theorizing on to lead to a beat and lead to an action piece and part of the story. I just think that. So yeah, I think your question is a very interesting one, and one maybe now I'll think about. Although I think I'd probably come back to that. That seems the obvious. One's quite cold and one's quite cutie pie. But yeah, I assume that's why I've not thought of that.
Interesting. I mean, at this point, I love that you're clearly very confident of this theory, because you're talking as if it is like, well, when we get to that, we'll get to it because it'll happen. And I love that confidence, Chris. That quiet confidence.
Well, that's a you know. Oh, well, I'm confident in the theory. Sorry, I thought you said the series. To which my answer was going to be like, well, whether I hate it or not, you're still going to force me to watch it. But yes, no, I am. Yeah, I am pretty confident in that theory. Yeah.
You know what's funny though is, and I'm wondering, is that actual just confidence in the theory, or is it just that your track record has been quite good with these? Because for those who aren't listening to our other podcast, Fringe Observers, Chris has been spookily accurate with his theories on a number of occasions. So he is knocking it out of the park like very regularly with theorizing on that show.
I think if a theory makes me go, and this is probably why I've had a success rate, because I just don't bother saying them if I can. I think this is the benchmark. If a theory makes me so sure and makes so much sense that I will be disappointed if they don't do that. Which is where I was with the Steve Oni thing. It wasn't because I didn't even lay that out as a theory. I didn't go, that's going to happen. But I just went, oh, that's the most interesting thing to do. And it's the same with this. This is the most interesting, logical thing to do, in my opinion. So that's maybe the benchmark. And the reason I'm sure of it is because I'm just like, everything about the theory makes so much sense that if they don't do that, I'm just going to be like, what? Like, there's no way other people haven't thought of this. There's no way that if that's not been revealed, if that's not a thing that you know one way or the other about, then other people are saying this. I've no doubt about that. It's you realizing the twist in Mr. Robot Series 2. Like, you knew other people were also suggesting that.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, and because it just made sense.
Yeah, so. It was very early on as well. I was very proud of that. And the thing is, I was so annoyed because when it all played out, I was like, I looked and like people have been saying it for a little while. I was like, damn it! I wish I'd been like, for once, like, can I just be the one that figures it out?
Yeah.
Anywho, yeah. Cool. So that's everything for this week. That again, the discussion rages on. Will Chris's theory be proven correct or incorrect? Only everyone knows. Except for Chris, because this show is it's already had a bunch. No, I'm kidding. No, like we'll see. I can't really say any more, obviously. So
yeah, that's fair.
But
another long one. Sorry, guys. Well, not sorry. You probably enjoyed that, but yeah.
So that's everything for this week. We'll be back next week as we discuss. Oh no, we got to do names. I feel like that's just a thing we do now, isn't it, Chris? So I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you next week or next time as we discuss Winter Forecast.